Imagine the slow horror of feeling your living flesh turn cold as stone. It begins in the backs of your legs, a numb weight creeping upward, as though the chair beneath you has awakened and closed its grip. You try to rise, but you cannot. Your skin no longer parts from the rock. It clings to it. It belongs to it. The stone of the underworld is drinking you in. You are Theseus. You are the slayer of the Minotaur. You are the breaker of roads and bandits. You are the king who gathered Athens beneath one hand. And now you are becoming part of a chair in the house of Hades. No lash falls on you. No flame consumes you. There is only stillness. That is the cruelty of it. The Lord of the Dead did not need chains. He did not need thunder. He only offered rest. And Theseus, who had long believed that no snare could hold him, accepted the gift and sat. This was the root of his ruin. Theseus was not only brave, he was a man who trusted his own judgment too deeply. Even in youth, when he walked the road to Athens, he did not merely overcome the killers he met there. He answered each one in his own fashion. The pine bender was bent, the robber was robbed, the cruel were paid back in the coin they had minted for others. It was not enough for Theseus to prevail. He wished to show that he understood the game better than those who played it. But even in greatness, the shadow was already there. We see it most clearly after his brightest triumph. Theseus entered Crete, slew the Minotaur, and carried the sons and daughters of Athens out of the Labyrinth alive. He had done what no man before him had done. He had taken death by the throat and returned victorious. Then he sailed for home. His father, King Aegeus, had been given one sign by which to know his son still lived. The black sail of mourning was to be replaced with white. But the white sail was never raised. Whether through grief, forgetfulness, or pride, the sign did not change. And when Aegeus saw the black sail from afar, despair seized him. He cast himself from the cliff into the sea that now bears his name. So Theseus came home, not only as a victor, but as a son standing in the shadow of his father's death. Then he took the throne, and as king, he was mighty. He drew the scattered peoples of Attica toward Athens. He strengthened the city. He enlarged its name. He gave order where there had been division. These were no small deeds, but there is a danger that follows men who conquer too often. When every trial is yielded before them, they begin to mistake good fortune for destiny, and destiny for permission. A man who has overcome monsters may at last begin to believe that no law was made for him. This is where Theseus changed. He was said to be a son of Poseidon as well as of mortal blood, and perhaps he began to think more on the divine half than the human one. The earth no longer seemed enough for his ambition. The daughters of kings were no longer enough for his desire. He and his companion Pirithous made a vow as proud as it was foolish. They would take for wives only daughters of Zeus. Such words should have been taken as an omen. Their first outrage was Helen of Sparta, still a child, not yet the woman whose face would one day launch 1,000 ships. Theseus seized her and hid her away at Aphidnae, as though her life were a prize to be stored until the season suited him. This alone tells the measure of the man he had become. He was no longer acting as a guardian of his people, nor even as a hero hungry for renown. He was reaching beyond mortal custom itself. He was laying hands on bloodlines, on houses, on sacred order, as if the world were his to arrange. But while Theseus dreamed of heights fit for gods, the world of men did not stand still. Helen's brothers, Castor and Pollux, came for her with force. They did not bow before Theseus's fame. They did not fear the stories told of him. They came as brothers, as avengers, and as princes with an army at their backs. Yet even then, with danger rising against his own house, Theseus turned his mind toward something still more terrible. Pirithous had chosen his bride, Persephone, queen of the dead. To speak such a plan aloud was madness. To attempt it was blasphemy. For this was no mortal queen shut behind city walls. This was the wife of Hades. To reach her, they would have to descend beneath the earth, pass into the kingdom from which no man returns unchanged, and stretch out their hands in theft against one of the oldest powers in the world. And Theseus agreed. Why should he not? He had broken the road. He had escaped the labyrinth. He had ruled a kingdom. Men like Theseus are never destroyed by failure first. They are destroyed by success. Victory teaches them a lesson more dangerous than defeat ever could, that the next forbidden thing may also yield. So the two of them went down into the underworld, and the descent was quiet. No army met them. No cry rose against them. There was only the smell of damp earth, the cold breath of the deep places, and the sound of their own footsteps moving where living men were not meant to walk. At last they came before Hades, and Hades did not rage. That is what makes the moment so dreadful. He did not leap from his throne like a beast. He did not answer insult with noise. He received them in stillness, heard their impossible demand, and then offered them seats. "Sit," he said, as a host might speak to weary travelers. "You have come far. Rest yourselves, and let us speak." And Theseus sat. The trap did not spring with iron teeth or sudden violence. It worked more cruelly than that. The moment Theseus settled his weight upon the stone, the chair took hold of him. First came the cold, then the heaviness, then the slow and dreadful knowledge that he could no longer rise. But the punishment of Hades was not only of the body, it was of memory also. Athens began to fade from him. The faces he had known grew dim. The name of his mother drifted away. The father whose death lay upon his story became a shadow. Even the thread of the labyrinth, that sign of wit and deliverance, seemed to fray and vanish in the dark corners of his mind. The man who had trusted most in his own cleverness was now being emptied of himself. And still the stone climbed into him. His flesh bound itself to the seat. His limbs lost their freedom. Across from him, Pirate House too was being claimed, sinking into the doom he had called upon with his own desire. Time ceased to mean anything there. Days may have passed, or years. In the halls of the dead, it is all one. Theseus remained in darkness, half man and half monument, watching the shades drift by like smoke. And while he sat below the earth, his kingdom unraveled above it. Helen was rescued. Attica was struck. His enemies moved. His people were left without the king who should have stood for them. This was the deepest shame of all. Theseus had not fallen while defending Athens. He had abandoned the living in order to seize what no mortal had the right to seize. At last deliverance came, but not as mercy. It came because another hero entered that realm on another labor. Heracles had descended to seize Cerberus, and in that dark kingdom, he found Theseus fixed to the chair, a broken remnant of his former greatness. Not a king, not a conqueror, only a warning. Heracles did not plead. He did not search for hidden words or secret laws. He took Theseus by the arms and pulled. What followed was agony. The stone did not wish to release its prisoner. Flesh tore, skin ripped away. The bond between man and rock broke only by violence. Heracles dragged him free, but not whole. Theseus rose from that chair maimed, bloodied, and diminished. Part of him remained behind forever in the house of Hades. So he returned to the upper world, but not in triumph. The city he had once ruled did not receive him as a savior. Too much had been broken. Too much had been abandoned. A king may return from war in glory, but a king who leaves his people for his own pride returns to a colder welcome. Theseus found no old greatness waiting for him, only the ruins of it. In the end, his last road led to Skyros. Driven from Athens, stripped of the authority he once wore so easily, Theseus fled to the island and sought refuge with King Lycomedes. There, far from the city whose fate had once rested in his hands, the old hero had become a dangerous guest, a fallen man whose name was greater than his power. One day he stood upon the cliffs above the sea. Perhaps he was looking toward home. Perhaps he was looking toward the past. Perhaps he was thinking, too late, on all that had slipped through his hands. And there Lycomedes pushed him. Theseus fell from the height and was shattered on the rocks below, dying beside the water, alone. The end was fitting in the cruel way myths often are. Years earlier, his father had died by the sea because of the black sail that Theseus failed to change. Now Theseus too was claimed by stone and height and water, as though the pattern of his own life had at last closed over him. This is why Theseus matters. Not only because he slew monsters, not only because he built a kingdom, but because he shows what happens when a great man begins to think himself more than mortal. The moment Theseus believed he stood above human law, human duty, and human measure, his fall had already begun. He reached down into the realm of death to seize a goddess, and death answered by seating him in silence, until pride itself became stone. And even as his body vanished into the surf, another ending was drawing near. Heracles was nearing the last of his labors. The age of heroes was beginning to consume itself. If you want to see the moment that age truly breaks, then the next story belongs to Heracles.